I want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to my sponsor, P2 Collectibles, located at 204 East McGalley Road in Muncie and on eBay as well. So next time you're here in Muncie, let us know. Come give us a visit. Hey, what is up, y'all? This is Alex from Plus3TCG, and don't mind me, I'm just a shitty YouTuber. I know I only loaded up one video last week. Sorry for that. I don't really have too much of an excuse, just spending a lot of time with family. I've taken on a couple more responsibilities. I'm a private tutor. I'm still coaching as well as working, so days are getting a little bit longer, the work days I mean. But I am not here to make excuses. I am here to give you content and to apologize for my absence. Hopefully I can maintain this work ethic for a while longer, or just from here on out. I'm not trying to really upload once a week. I'm trying to give y'all some quality content, not just some shit videos every once in a while. But that's neither here nor there. Today we are going to be talking about some deck building tactics, specifically card types. I feel like once you understand card types, you can start understanding ratios and what your cards are actually doing for you instead of just playing cards that you like. We're going to be focusing on starter cards. These cards just get us something by themselves. That's why they are, I guess, coined the term starter cards, because when you start with them, you can get something. They get you something usually in the form of searching, setting cards to the field from deck, or sending cards from the deck to the grave, just stuff like that. Now, we want to focus our starter cards as much as possible on interacting with the deck and getting those cards from deck to hand or grave. We want a lot of searching from deck cards, because these cards come at no activation cost except to have a certain card in deck. Cards that draw you cards are also good, but not as good as searching because of the risk factor and not guaranteeing the card you're drawing. So if at all possible, try to make sure that your starter cards are searchers. There are many cards that serve the function of starters, but some also have multiple roles, which are the most ideal starter cards, and we're going to be going on to what those cards may look like later on in the video. Now, we are going to take a look at some examples of starter cards and talk about the ideal number you want to play, as well as the probability of drawing into those cards as we go on. Now, we are going to hop right into what these starter cards might look like. So we're looking at Soul Eating Oviraptor. Now, right off the jump, something to mention about the normal summon is normal summon is precious, as we fundamentally only get one. So unless we have a card that gets us more, if you negate the normal summon, decks that have only that normal summonable monster usually have trouble maintaining control unless they can generate multiple summons in a turn. So when we're using our starter card in the form of a normal summon, we take a risk in getting that negated and not having like multiple spell starter cards to back us up. Spells are just better starter cards because we can activate as many of these per turn as we want, as long as the card doesn't restrict us from doing so. Now, in the form of Soul Eating Oviraptor, if this card's normal or special summon, you can take one dinosaur type monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the grave. Now, this is an ideal starter card because it has multiple effects. Even outside of its normal summon, it's getting you something else. So you can normal summon a card, and if you have an additional combo piece, you can use its second effect as well, which makes this a very good starter card because it's not only getting us something on its normal summon, it's also doing something outside of its normal summon. So it's a very good starter card, an ideal one, if you will. Then we have cards like Terraforming. Terraforming is great because it goes with that theory that spells are just better starters, because this card can be activated 3 times, essentially netting you 3 searches. I mean, if you open all 3, which is bad in most cases, you still would get 3 searches, but that's neither here nor there. It's still an amazing starter card, and it fits the role of a starter card because you just add 1 field spell from your deck to your hand once you activate this. Then we have cards like Union Hanger, which are another one of those multi-function starter cards. This gets you a card, and then when you summon a Machine Union, you can equip another a Light Machine Union monster to it, which is amazing, and it just continues your plays. And it's a great card, great starter card, and like I said, it fits the quintessential starter because it just gets you stuff, and it does stuff on your opponent's turn and your turn. Now, we talked about the normal summon and how unless cards unless a card exists that gets you multiple normal summons, then your only normal summon is usually pretty precious, and that's why Brilliant Fusion is an amazing starter card, because it gives us multiple summons and is a potential 1-card starter YUGIOH, because if you're playing Trick Clown and if you are playing the Predaplant engine, you can get into this card very easily with 1 card and then set up 1,000 Blades, Trick Clown, Seraph Knight, and you usually can go off from there. That's usually good enough to get you your board. And this is a multi-function starter card, because it not only gives you an additional normal summon if you can keep your Seraph Knight on the field, it also gives you additional monsters in the grave and potentially on board if you're playing Trick Clown. And then we are also going to talk about some less ideal starter cards. Essentially, these cards do get you something, but for the most part, they play the role of an extender, because on most occasions, unless they're paired with another card that gives you or gets you something or an additional summon, it's not like the best starter card. We're going to go with Madolche Mageline. If you're playing this in unison with this, that's amazing, because this gets you another monster, this gets you another summon, and then you get to summon the monster that you added with Mageline. But if you only open Mageline, it's for the most part trash. Cards like Overraptor, if you open Overraptor, send Miscellaneous, banish it, summon Aeoli, and go into a Chambara, that gets you a hefty attack, and it could potentially push for game. Mageline, on the other hand, if you're just summoning it by itself, all you're doing is adding a Madolche monster that you're going to need to either special or normal summon. And if you don't have any cards to pair with that, this card doesn't do much. So while this is a starter card, it's not the most ideal starter card. And then another card that kind of plays that same role is Foolish Burial Goods. Foolish Burial, that card's nuts. That card can get you something just by itself. This card, however, for the most part, there aren't a lot of spells besides Toy Vendor. Blanking on a couple others, but the only one I can think of right now is Toy Vendor. But for the most part, there aren't a lot of cards that you're sending with Foolish Burial Goods that are getting you cards outside of Toy Vendor, which can get you, for the most part, whatever you want. So it's not as ideal. It's got to be paired with other cards. Like, it's great in Spiral, because if you open a Spiral monster in this, that's usually pretty good, because you can just summon the monster if you can't afford the summon, or you can't afford the normal summon, you can't special summon out of your hand by itself. So this can play the role of a starter. However, it's usually not getting you much. So unless you're playing this in Fluffles, even though this gets you a card, that card has to have high impact. It has to be able to either be used that turn or have an impact that turn. And if you can't do it, if the starter card isn't getting you something like that, then it's hard to call it a starter card. So just keep that in mind when you're deck building, when you're playing cards that do get you cards. Like if you're playing Odd Eyes and you have a Terraforming and you search out like, I can't even remember what that field spell is, or like, just the field spell, honestly. Or like in Dynamist, where they have a field spell. Play Terraforming, add the Dynamist field spell. That's not doing anything for you, but it's playing the role of a starter card. The card you have to be searching with your starter card or getting with your starter card has to have an impact. Otherwise, you can't really qualify it as a starter card. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully that gives you some idea of what to be looking for as far as starter cards are concerned when you're building your deck. Hopefully giving various examples of starter cards helps people who don't necessarily know what starter cards are or how to identify them. Hopefully helps them differentiate between what a starter card is and what is not, or what is the most ideal starter card to be playing in your decks. The ideal number is between 10 and 14, I would say. Ideally on the higher end of this scale. I guess this isn't necessarily like my opinion. I would like to think this is just kind of a collective understanding, as well as like if you want to read Patrick Hoban's book, not being sponsored by him or anything, but it goes through a lot of like deck building theory and whatnot, and it's a good thing to read. Anyway, like I said, you want to play 10 to 14 starters, ideally on the higher end of this scale. The reason you don't want to max your deck out with a bunch of starter cards is because you want to leave room for extenders, defensive cards, bombs, as they play essential roles in the deck as well. As the number of starter cards goes up from 14, going into the reason why you don't want to play more than that. Your chances of drawing 1 doesn't increase a ton, and your chance of drawing 2 increases at about the same rate before, but that is a pretty hefty increase on some occasions. So, well, it might sound great. You don't want to clog your hand with a bunch of starters. You don't want to have 18 to 20 starters in your deck unless you don't play a bunch of extenders, and those starters get you the card that plays a role of like spot removal or negation or something like that. So with all that in consideration, let's rattle off some of these ratios. So 10 starter cards leaves us with a 78% chance of opening at least 1 in our opening hand of 5 if we're going first, and then 36 to 37% chance of opening at least 2, and then going up, we're just gonna jump up to like 13. That leaves us with 87% chance of opening at least 1 and 53% chance of opening at least 2 starters. Playing 14 starters leaves us with a 90% chance of opening at least 1 and 58% chance of opening at least 2. 15 leaves us with a 91 to 92% chance of opening at least 1 in our opening hand of 5 and a 63% chance of opening at least 2. Now the reason you don't want to go into too many starter cards, like pushing that 20 line, is if half of your deck in a 40 card deck is starter cards, yeah, that's great. You're gonna open up, it's almost a guarantee you're gonna open up a starter. It's a 98% chance that you're gonna open up a starter card, which is practically guaranteed, and 83% chance of opening at least 2. But you also have a 50% chance of opening at least 3, which is bad because you want your other cards to be able to push your game state. And unless all 3 starter cards are absolutely perfect and they are a combo piece, then ideally you don't want to open. There are a lot of decks that do want to open 3 starter cards or 3 combo cards, usually like 2 starters and an extender, because that's what most big boards require, is 3 to 4 cards to make that like ideal negation board or ideal setup. So I guess there you go. If you're paying like 3 starters and you have 20 of them, you have a really high chance of opening them. I probably misworded that. But yeah, if you play 20 starters, you have a high chance of opening at least 1, but a really high chance of opening 3. You don't want to brick. I know there's a lot to take into consideration, but yeah, I wanted to get the information out there so that people can start making official decisions and not making decisions based off of like a biased thought process because like they just like the card. I'm sure there are other videos like this out there, but I just wanted to put my opinion out there on this and what I think ideally, what kind of starter cards people should be trying to play and the number of them that they would likely be trying to play. Like I said, lots to take into consideration, a lot of information coming at you at once, but we'll be getting into other aspects of deck building eventually. Let me know if you want to see these other deck building aspects down in the comments section below. I'll save those for another video like I said, and until next time, this is Alex from Plus3 TCG, signing out, y'all.